next guest I'm extremely excited about. I have known Patrick Collison and his brother John since the early 2010s. They were recently arrived in the city. They were starting to build a company called Stripe. And in the years since, it has grown into a juggernaut. And Patrick, I think, has become one of the most interesting and influential thinkers in tech outside of his day job. He and Tyler Cowen wrote a piece in The Atlantic about the need for a new science of progress. He also is the co-founder of the ARC Institute, which is doing a bunch of really important biomedical research. And just to top it off, in April, he joined the board of Meta, which is currently reshuffling its AI team in ways that might be fun to talk about. So I'm extremely excited to welcome to the stage Patrick Collison. Hey! It's real. Hi, how are you?
Hey, good to see you.
All
right.
Patrick, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm doing well. It's wonderful to be here where I've come to so many long now talks here, and now it's you guys.
There is no longer now than a podcast, is what they say.
So, Patrick, you are a big proponent of what they call the abundance agenda. I think I can say that without paying a royalty to Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson. What is the most urgent abundance-related need right now? Is it housing, land use, fast-tracking approvals for new drugs? What is it?
Building.
And why is that?
I think, look, there are so many domains where we need more progress than we've garnered. The rate of improvement of life expectancies has really diminished, and there are still, you still get colds, right? Like that's crazy. We're on a trajectory supposedly to invent nuclear fusion and AGI, and so many, but like we haven't cured even the common cold, right? So there are a lot of challenges we face in many domains. There are many pursuits in science and technology where we should be going much faster. However, I think the place where the constraints are most unnecessary, most self-imposed, and easiest to at least in principle, easiest to address are in any kind of physical construction. And like, by the way, California and San Francisco used to stand for this, right? We have the Kaiser signs, around the bay, and the Marin ship was in California. Those stories of the ships that got built in a day, like they happened here. And so I think California is kind of this funny superposition where in the 40s, 50s, 60s, I mean, actually, my favorite example of this is Treasure Island we built to celebrate the construction of the Golden Gate Bridge. We were just so drunk on the fervor of having finished the Golden Gate Bridge. We're like, we were just caught up in the momentum of it, and we're like, well, let's just go build another thing. And so we built an island. And so California and San Francisco used to stand for this, and now California. My favorite example of this is, we passed the ballot prop in 1996 for California high-speed rail, and they used to have on the website, you had to go there, and the forecast completion date was 2033. And now I just checked recently, and they've now taken it down. So it used to be a 37-year project, and now who knows? So
yeah, it's so interesting. I was interviewing someone once about their AI forecast and how everything was going to change in the next 2 or 3 years. We were going to have super intelligences and robot factories, and we're sitting in Berkeley and looking out over the Berkeley sort of downtown, and I said, do you think any of that will get permitted by zoning? And he was like, no. So even the people thinking about the wildest possible futures cannot imagine land use reform in the Bay Area.
Yeah, well, another, I think, kind of funny example of this was, there was the sort of announced aspirational city project in Solano County back a couple of years ago. You guys covered it on the podcast. But I thought kind of the response was sort of funny, where thousands of times in its history, and America's history is only a couple hundred years, America decided, hey, let's build a city, and that is a thing that has in fact ensued, and there is a city there today, and it's happened even reasonably recently with Irvine and so forth. But the response to that was astonishment and people aghast, and that kind of audacity was kind of offensive. Yep. But when somebody says, hey, we're going to create a super intelligence to populate the cosmos, we're like, yep, seems pretty reasonable. When someone says we're going to build a new city in California, it's like, that's just ridiculous.
I mean, I do think that there is an element separate from that, which is that with a lot of tech, I think some folks just feel like they've gotten a bad bargain, right? Maybe with social media, they don't quite like the bargain that they've gotten, or they worry about the environmental impact of some of these technologies. And so sometimes I do think technologists come along and they say, we want to take a crack at this, and people just think, I don't actually trust you to do that. And I imagine you have done some thinking about this as somebody who is trying to bring your influence to bear on public issues. So how do you reckon with that?
Well, you have the Homer car problem. And nobody wants it. Yeah. So I think that in many domains, I think it's the case that if you go and you talk to the insiders and the people who've been, plowing some lonely furrow for a long time, they are brimming with ideas for how it could be done better. And it's not a matter of somebody careering in from outside with some delusions of grandeur and some sense for how it could all be done differently. I think in many cases it's actually about unleashing the ideas kind of inside the system that are existing and not yet manifested. And one of my favorite examples and one of the most striking examples of this is we ran a survey a couple of years ago of practicing top-tier scientists. And we asked them, not whether you had more money, but if you could spend your current funding dollars however you like, because today funding dollars come with all sorts of restrictions, and they're allocated by committees and by consensus, and with kind of tight field definitions and so forth. So we asked these scientists, if you could keep your current funding level, but if you could spend those dollars however you want, how much would your research agenda change? And I thought that the results might be striking. Maybe a third of scientists would actually like to be doing something else. 79% of respondents in that survey said they would change their research agenda a lot. And that just blew my mind, because we go to, these scientists, they're so self-sacrificing. Like, they could go and make $1 bajillion, or these days $100 bajillion by doing something more lucrative, and they've decided to try to better humanity by working inside the academy. They spend decades training, and then 80% are telling us that they would be doing something very different. Not if they had more money, but if they had fewer strictures attached to their current money. So I think that's one striking example. That was one of the influences for ARC. But I think in many of these cases, whether it's urban design and urban planning, or any kind of construction or whatever, I think the insiders often know how to do it a lot better.
Yeah. You mentioned the 100 million figure, so I have to ask, you are on the board of Meta, which is currently reshuffling its AI teams, building a super intelligence team, and reportedly offering people $100 million to come work for them. Have you been helping with that? And what kind of advice are you giving to Mark Zuckerberg about that?
You add the payments guy to the board, and then all of a sudden, I've just had one board meeting, so I shouldn't comment.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me ask you about something you can comment on then, which is this idea of agentic commerce, which I've heard a bunch of times recently, and I think it means something like robots buying stuff. This is a big idea in the tech industry right now, that you're just going to have these bots going out and buying things on your behalf, or that there's going to be agents transacting with each other. Right now, Stripe is a platform to help people, human beings, pay for things. But I can go on Operator and have it buy me a pizza or a burrito. I imagine
if you have 2 hours for it to complete that process.
Yes.
Yeah.
I imagine you're planning for a world in which this kind of thing is happening more. What does that look like, and is Stripe still necessary in that world?
Well, look, Stripe enables the transactions and the money movement, beneath the surface, and so we're to some extent agnostic about and enthusiastic about all the different modalities in which that might happen. And when Stripe started, mobile wasn't nearly as big a thing as it is today, and stable coins didn't exist, and so forth. So we're enthusiastic about the reinvention here. And from my standpoint, the variety that one can benefit from on the internet is tremendous, and I think it's amazing that you can have so many niche businesses that are serving these preposterously large global audiences and customer bases that couldn't exist without the internet, right? Because if you're only restricted to the hinterland that you locally serve, you get much less. There's much less that's possible. But very few people say, the thing I love about internet commerce is after I click on the thing that I am brought to sort of a
Checkout flow.
Yeah, like a 30-field form, to fill out and then fax it, and parts of it in Latin. Like it feels very antiquated. And so I think the promise for these, I don't know. I think agents sounds very kind of highfalutin, but these critters to go and to sort of be the paperwork minions for you. To sort of dispatch one and say, hey, go, handle that, and then, I will resume whatever else I was doing. I think that's very promising, and I think it's going to be, better for everyone.
Will the agents use dollars or crypto?
Well, I know I'm here with well-known crypto booster Casey Newton, but I think they will use amounts denominated in the local currency. So I think in the U.S. things will be in dollars and euros in Ireland and so forth. And I think there's kind of an irony where with the invention of crypto, it is an amazing kind of computer science invention and technology and so forth. Obviously, the sort of initial conception of Bitcoin was, we're going to throw off the shackles of our, of the monetary tyranny and oppression that we're sort of subjected to, and liberate ourselves with this new currency. And look, at Bitcoin has obviously garnered a lot of traction, but a majority of cryptocurrency transactions today are in stablecoins, are dollar denominated. And I think it might be the case with stablecoins that what actually happens is rather than kind of overthrowing the dollar, it actually enables people outside the US to access the dollar in ways they couldn't previously. I think this is the biggest thing that's actually underappreciated by people here in America, which is for outsiders. Lots of currencies are not a great thing to hold savings in, or not a great thing to transact in. Like I don't want to name names and single any poor currency out, but there are many currencies where when you go to give them to your counterparty, they look at you funny and ask you, what is that?
Yeah. Cole's Cash comes to mind. That's, yeah.
And there's a lot of currencies that have lost 75% of their value, in the last 5 years. And so providing the ability for people outside the US to hold dollars is, I think, going to be a big deal. And so anyway, I think there's kind of an irony in crypto where, one of the most important and consequential things it may end up enabling is the dollar's greater success.
You are a co-founder of the Arc Institute. You mentioned it a moment ago. You also mentioned the persistent problem of the common cold. Do you think there is something that can be done about the common cold? And are you going to work on it?
We have a big announcement tonight. No.
So that would be so dope.
Yes, that mist on the way in was actually a vaccine. No. Humanity has, this was only a penny that dropped for me a couple of years ago. Humanity has never cured a complex disease. And what I mean by that is, there are some genes that there's some diseases, infectious diseases, the cold, COVID, what have you. Then we have monogenic diseases, Huntington's, things that are the product of, some specific genetic abnormality. But then you have all these diseases that are some combination of the environment and what you do with your life and genetic risk factors you might have. So this is most cancers, most cardiovascular disease, most neurodegenerative disease, most autoimmune disease, and so forth. Anyway, we've never cured one of these. It's too complicated because figuring out how the genes and the environment and the durations that elapse and so forth, it's incorrigible. So we set up Arc Institute to try to, again, time will tell, whether they're actually able to make any progress here. But the idea was, hey, can we try a different strategy for going after these complex diseases? And one of the things that has been, a real boost for us over the last 2 years is actually AI, where I think the LLMs, as we interact with them, they're obviously wonderful and enable all sorts of productivity enhancements and so forth. But there's another language, DNA, the language of life, and kind of hitherto we haven't really, it's billions of base pairs, and we can't at a human level understand what's going on there. It's kind of beyond what any individual can comprehend. And what we've seen with some early work, and we published our first virtual cell model yesterday, actually by coincidence.
Yeah, tell us about that. What is a virtual cell?
So why haven't we cured cancer or any complex disease? I mean, on some level, the problem is that experiments in biology are slow and expensive. Like, you're dealing with actual physical cells, and you have to wait for them to grow. And so if you have some hypothesis or some idea, you do things to the cells, and then you wait 3 months, you wait 6 months, you have to purchase the reagents, the ingredients, they're expensive, the supply chains span multiple countries. So just it's laborious. So in software and engineering, you have an idea, you write a quick command to the command line, and 10 milliseconds later you have your response. In biology, sort of that REPL takes months to elapse. And so the idea behind a virtual cell, and this is not, others have had this idea, this is not ARC's idea, the kind of core idea is if you actually had a useful, accurate way to perform kind of computational experiments where you try the thing that in accordance with your hypothesis, in silico, as the biologists say, because they always like to make things complicated and fancy. But really, you just like computationally do your thing. Then again, if that was actually accurate, it would be an enormous accelerant to biology. So anyway, that's the kind of idea. We haven't until recently. Is this too much biology?
No, we like it.
Okay, all right.
You guys like biology?
In the last couple of years, we've got sort of technologies in 3 different domains that are really important. So with a computer is composed of the ability to read, to think, to compute, whatever, and then to write. That's the core 3 operations. In biology, in the last just couple years, we've got the ability to sequence individual cells, to figure out what's going on in just like one cell, which is a big deal. We've gotten deep neural networks and transformers and all that stuff, so we can kind of think over data of very significant complexity. And then we've had huge advances in functional genomics and CRISPR and the ability to make individual edits to individual cells. And so those are all big breakthroughs in their own right. But when you put them together, there's kind of this shimmering potential promise that, hey, maybe you could, for the first time, enable these accurate computational predictions very quickly, very cheaply. And again, if that worked, it would be a huge deal in biology.
Very cool. Very cool.
No.
Yeah.
You guys don't tap if it works.
You are a voracious reader. What is your case for reading the whole book instead of an AI summary? Or is that not a case you would make?
Gosh, I think reading the AI summary I think it can be useful. I think it has a powerfully inoculating effect. I think TV is a waste. Like long-form TV, lots of episodes, TV is a waste of time. But
we told you there would be hot takes tonight.
but it's very tempting, right? So like you watch an episode and like, oh geez, I really want to know what happens here. And so I discovered a couple of years ago, obviously, the solution is you immediately go to Wikipedia and read the entire summary of the season, and you're cured of the desire to watch any more episodes. So I think there is a therapeutic benefit to AI summaries.
That is the most San Francisco thing I've ever heard.
But
I love it.
But it's one does not derive any deep pleasure or betterment from it. So I've never read an AI book summary.
Yeah.
All right, Patrick, can we do some lightning round questions?
Okay.
What age will the media?
When do I get to ask for the Stripe feedback?
Oh, well,
Case you're a Stripe customer.
I am a Stripe customer. Actually, very quickly, you're doing automated disputes now?
Yes.
Very excited to try this.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right.
Good. Yeah.
And everything else is working well?
Everything's also working great.
Okay,
Everything's
great.
Yeah.
All right, lightning round questions. What age will the median child born in 2025 in the U.S. live to be?
So 25 today?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 95.
Oh, great. What is one thing you wish an agent could do, an AI agent could do for you reliably that it can't quite yet?
Reason over the scientific literature. It gets tripped up in the paywalls.
Well, and we know how.
And I think, like, why hasn't anyone in that space done anything about it?
Yeah.
We love paywalls in this house. Patrick, what trait do you hire for?
Imagine if you had critters paying at them, on behalf of unsuspecting people.
Yeah, I love that.
sounds
That's a
beautiful.
business model for the media.
Yeah.
I'm excited to present the critter strategy at the next meeting. What trait do you hire for that most companies undervalue?
For Stripe, we really care about long-term thinking. Like infrastructure, with the lightning round, but infrastructure can't happen overnight. We've been working on it for 15 years. We still feel like we're just starting. And so if somebody, like our product and the super successful ones still take a decade to fully play out. And so I like the analogy that there's kind of technology companies building cars and roads, and we need cars, and cars are super cool and beautiful and all the things, but like someone's got to build the roads, and Stripe looks for the kind of people who are predisposed to work on roads.
Is there a book you read recently that made you say, everyone I know needs to read this? Or even not that recently?
I'll give you two. The Dream Machine is like, hands up here who feels like they really have a good understanding of the history of the internet.
Shame on you.
Well, it's funny. Like Alan Kay once commented that computer science is a pop culture. He thought that we were kind of recapitulating the same ideas in kind of blissful ignorance of our history. And I think there is something kind of funny where we as technologists were not as into and fascinated by, I think, our own history as people are in other domains. And so the Dream Machine is the best history of the internet and the kind of thinking around it and like the motivations around it. And it's also it's published by Stripe Press. So and then the one I read reasonably recently that kind of blew my mind was The Demon Under the Microscope, which was you all know that penicillin was the first antibiotic, except it wasn't. There was one before it. It changed the world. The story behind its invention is very interesting. So those are my two.
Very
Great.
cool.
Patrick Collison, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. If I ever feel smart, I try to just talk to Patrick Collison, and it really brings me down a peg.
Yeah, he talks as fast as us. It's amazing. You should have a podcast.